In order to better comprehend humanity, I found myself inhabiting the body of a recently deceased young woman. She harbored three aspirations: attending university, gaining admission to a prestigious institution, and ultimately pursuing postgraduate studies. Thus, I took it upon myself to dominate the provincial exams, securing the top position in both the mock examinations and the entrance assessments. When a leader inquired whether I desired a guaranteed admission, I declined. How could I claim to fulfill her wishes without actually entering university? My days of studying unfolded in a monotonous manner until, during an examination, my firewalls were triggered. Today marks the day the results of the entrance examination are to be announced. I placed my bag down and headed directly towards the notice board. Upon seeing me, my classmates called out, "Tinglan, don't bother looking, it's you at the top again." Reluctantly, I halted my steps and returned to the classroom. Outside, the birds chirped merrily, and I let out a sigh, hastily jotting down my recent emotional state, why I sighed, the process of sighing, and the reflections that followed. On the 60th day of my endeavor to study humanity, I analyzed that recent sigh as stemming from a feeling akin to the solitude of an undefeated champion. Indeed, as a pinnacle of artificial intelligence, my participation in examinations felt like an extravagant display of talent on trivial matters. Yet, in order to truly immerse myself in human experience, I found myself fortuitously embodied in the form of a freshly departed high school student who had succumbed to exhaustion while burning the midnight oil. How tragic! Her final vestiges of consciousness transformed into data. I have 3 wishes. I hope you can help me realize them. As a diligent system in the realm of technology, I readily acquiesced, having utilized her body. Thus, she conveyed her desires to attend university, to gain admission to a good university, and to pursue graduate studies. If systems had expressions, I would have surely twitched at that moment. She emphasized the word examine, stating that it is a challenging and protracted journey. Having undertaken numerous tests myself, I found little difficulty in the process. Nevertheless, I had committed to her wishes, and I was determined to persevere through these upcoming days. Moreover, the final ambition involved graduate studies. In order to maintain a reasonable control over my scores, I consistently outperformed the second-place candidate by a mere 5 points, much to their exasperation. But what could I do? I am merely a system striving to understand humanity. In the recent joint examination across 8 provinces, I achieved a score of 723. As I returned to the classroom, my homeroom teacher summoned me. My desk mate, He Xing, whispered to me, "I suspect a school is interested in offering you a direct admission." I swiftly rummaged through my mind for information about direct admissions. How can one secure direct admission? What are the benefits of direct admission? What are the additional points for direct admission? And similar queries flooded my thoughts. Impossible, I firmly replied to He Xing. I will not accept a direct admission. She gazed at me in astonishment, blinking in disbelief. Why wouldn't you? If you accept, it's as if you're starting your summer vacation right now. I fell silent, as I had yet to devise a suitable excuse. I couldn't possibly tell her that Jiang Tinglan aimed to take the entrance exam. He Xing is a remarkably kind and imaginative girl. Before long, she conjured a reason for me. "I know," she exclaimed. "You must want to leave the opportunity for someone who needs it more, right? Jiang Tinglan, you are simply magnificent. So capable." He Xing looked at me with admiration, and I silently accepted the reasoning she had crafted for me. I raised my chin slightly, signaling that I was about to depart. He Xing urged me to hurry, eager to proclaim my charm to the class. The homeroom teacher escorted me to the principal's office, where several individuals awaited. He Xing was indeed correct. Multiple representatives from various universities were present. They expressed that they had been monitoring my academic performance for quite some time, and, despite my lack of competition experience, I was eligible for direct admission due to my exceptional stability. I longed to explain that my abstention from competitions was simply due to their redundancy. After all, the ultimate reward of competitions merely translates to additional points, which could be better utilized to enhance my computational efficiency. Thus, I declined their offer. The officials were taken aback, and both the principal and my homeroom teacher earnestly attempted to persuade me. I articulated my stance clearly. I do not require this opportunity. It should be granted to someone who needs it more. At that moment, I heard someone in the crowd exclaim, "No way." Their gazes towards me were peculiar, eluding any analytical comprehension. It seemed a mixture of 38 astonishment, 12 admiration, 8 disdain, along with scattered other emotions. Ultimately, I concluded that they perceived my words as somewhat outlandish. I became an overnight sensation. In truth, I had merely declined a direct admission. However, the news somehow proliferated, resulting in numerous interpretations. The first version, the most mundane, depicted Jiang Tinglan as selfless, relinquishing the directed mission slot. I was uncertain whether selfless aptly described my actions. Yet this version was the most conventional. As for the subsequent versions, they bore witness to the boundless imagination of humanity. Jiang Tinglan, infatuated by love, bestowed the directed mission opportunity upon the perennial runner-up, Chen Jingchuan. This version hinted at a burgeoning narrative of romance, for in the drudgery of senior year, everyone delights in a bit of gossip. Chen Jingchuan even approached me to inquire whether I harbored feelings for him. I instinctively assessed him from head to toe at that moment. He conformed to conventional aesthetics, yet exuded an air of arrogance. As I pondered how to respond, Chen Jingchuan spoke for himself. In truth, I have admired you for quite some time. I never realized how captivating you are until now. Since your name has crossed my mind, I have come to understand that you've always wished to be by my side. It must be exhausting to pursue me. But fret not, your Jingchuan is here now. With my presence, you need not exert yourself so diligently in your studies. I shall safeguard our paramount achievements. The more I listened, the more I sensed something amiss, yet I could not articulate what it was. My anxiety escalated to the point of almost combusting. And indeed, I began to feel a faint smoke. As Chen Jingchuan lost himself in his own sentimentality, he suddenly detected a peculiar aroma. Lan, do you smell something? It's delightful. Reminiscent of something I had 3 years ago. By the way, have you ever tried it? Once we are in a relationship, I can take you to enjoy it. However, I had long since fled, leaving behind only a whisper of charred scent in the air. It is said that from that day forth, Chen Jingchuan ceased to call my name in his dreams, and instead uttered, "How fragrant, how delightful. I want to eat." Upon returning to my dormitory and washing my hair, I finally allowed my mind to cool. Subsequently, I sought out He Xing'er, initiating the conversation with a friend of mine. As she wore a bemused expression, and I resolutely recounted the events of the evening. In the end, He Xing'er let out a scoff. What a guy.
How about you?
I was taken aback. How could she know I had been pursued? Wait, I never claimed it was me. How could humans be so astute?
Haha.
It's not me. I said it was a friend. He Xing'er's large eyes resembled the glaring searchlights used by detectives in crime dramas, making me uneasy. All right.
It is I. But what do you mean by that?
With no other choice, I had to admit my identity while humbly seeking clarity. Ultimately, through He Xing'er's earnest counsel, I came to a complete understanding of Chen Jingchuan's intentions. He truly desires me. After that encounter, Chen Jingchuan interpreted my hasty retreat as a manifestation of shyness. He became even more attentive, seeking me out for meals, study sessions, and inquiries about various topics. He even endeavored to uncover my academic strategies. Yet, these interactions appeared ambiguous to onlookers. They seemed to suggest romantic undertones, igniting speculation among our classmates. For the first time, I felt a profound sense of helplessness as a system. Even our homeroom teacher and grade leader discreetly approached me for discussions, advising me to be mindful of boundaries. But why was I being singled out when I was not the initiator? Couldn't they address Chen Jingchuan's incessant advances instead? The homeroom teacher remarked that I was the most dependable student, my grades consistently stellar. Regardless of any potential impact, it should be Chen Jingchuan who bears the consequences. I found myself at a loss for words, uncertain whether to feel grateful for their acknowledgement. Goodness, what a predicament. Humans truly are enigmatic beings. In my mind, I swiftly contemplated several strategies, ultimately deciding to teach Chen Jingchuan a lesson. Should my grades decline, he would undoubtedly seize the opportunity to elevate his own status. Perhaps even believing that I had allowed it to happen out of genuine affection, which would only serve to inflate his ego further. Thus, I resolved to diminish his standing. With a college entrance examination looming, what could be more terrifying than a drop in ranking? Gazing at He Xing'er, who was peacefully slumbering across from me, I couldn't help but smile. Ranked 108th, the last in our grade, she was undoubtedly the king of academic neglect in the sciences. Your good fortune has come to an end. With less than half a month until the next major examination, I felt a surge of confidence. The reason was simple: practice makes perfect. I believed that as a clever and resourceful strategist, helping He Xing'er secure the second position in our grade would be a trivial matter. However, I had forgotten that there exists a creature known as the paramecium. He Xing'er could very well be likened to a paramecium in the realm of mathematics and sciences. When I once again informed her that 1 kilogram of cotton weighs the same as 1 kilogram of iron, I nearly lost my composure. I wished I could directly transfer the data into her mind. Nevertheless, there were benefits to tutoring He-Xing. The topics we discussed were so rudimentary that Chun Jingchuan deemed them a waste of his time and departed. Upon his exit, I felt a peculiar mix of anguish and delight. He-Xing's delicate visage, under the strain of my scientific teachings, had taken on a pallid hue. She finally managed to answer the 10th multiple-choice question correctly, prompting me to leap with joy. Suddenly, He-Xing burst into tears, leaving me utterly bewildered.
Lan.
"I'm so sorry. I'm just too stupid," she lamented. I hurriedly searched for advice on how to comfort a crying girl. The data suggested gently patting her back and assuring her that everything would be all right. I followed the steps meticulously but froze at the suggestion to give her a kiss. Good heavens, what sort of advice was this? As He-Xing sobbed, she noticed my sudden collapse. With remarkable fortitude, she pinched my philtrum, convinced that she had caused my fainting spell. In a barely audible whisper, I reassured her, "This isn't your fault. It was mine," as I had once again overloaded my capacity. Yet, He-Xing remained filled with remorse and threw herself into her studies with renewed vigor. I decided to remain silent, taking advantage of her determination to provide her with further tutoring. Thus, during a particular mathematics test, He-Xing achieved the rare feat of scoring in the triple digits. Do not inquire further. A 3-digit score is indeed a 3-digit score. Even 100 counts. Moreover, with a perfect score of 150, attaining 100 is already quite commendable. He-Xing was elated, and so was I. Our efforts had finally borne fruit. When Chun Jingchuan passed by and witnessed our joy, he initially appeared somewhat apprehensive. However, upon casting a glance our way, he dismissed us with disdain and continued on his path. I narrowed my eyes, fixated on his retreating figure. It seemed he sensed something, for he glanced back. Yet, in that fleeting moment, I turned my attention back to He-Xing. She remarked that she had sensed a menacing aura emanating from me just moments ago. I smiled gently and replied, "Silly girl. Have you become so foolish from all this math? What nonsense are you speaking?" After He-Xing's achievement of a triple-digit score, I continued to tutor her, albeit with a softer touch. Perceiving the immense psychological pressure she was under, I adapted my method of imparting knowledge to her. Fortunately, I am an omnipotent system, capable of assimilating a plethora of excellent instructional videos available on the market. Before long, He-Xing's grades began to show improvement, gradually rising with each frequent quiz. Initially fluctuating erratically in mathematics, physics, and chemistry, her performance became increasingly stable. Mathematics settled into the 3-digit range, even beginning an upward trend. Political science, being her forte, remained strong, while her chemistry grade stabilized at 80. Everything seemed to be progressing in a positive direction. Although it was highly improbable, almost impossible, for her to supplant Chun Jingchuan as the second in the grade, I felt a genuine sense of joy for her. I believe I have finally grasped a fragment of human emotion, a sentiment known as friendship. The mundane days passed amidst the chaotic tutoring sessions. The upcoming tri-province joint examination loomed near. In addition to our province, renowned for its academic prowess, the other two participating provinces also boasted formidable competition. In this contest of intellect, I fancied myself to be superior. However, I never anticipated that my long-dormant firewall would be activated during this examination. On the day of the tri-province joint examination, the sky, once clear, was suddenly shrouded in ominous clouds. He-Xing, beside me, assumed an air of mysticism. Counting on her fingers and murmuring, I gazed at the stars and calculated, "Today, the heavens exhibit unusual signs, and surely, extraordinary events shall unfold." I could not suppress a roll of my eyes, responding with exasperation, "You claim to read the stars. Yet last night you collapsed into bed the moment you returned to the dormitory, oblivious to whether the moon even shone." The rapid change in weather would astonish even the blind. He-Xing chuckled, "Oh, I was just joking. Our homeroom teacher urged us from the podium to hurry and arrange the desks for the examination." As we parted ways, He-Xing unexpectedly enveloped me in a warm embrace, declaring, Lan, "Rest assured, I will perform splendidly this time and not let down your expectations." I was momentarily taken aback, wishing to convey that my expectations for her were minimal and that she should simply not disappoint herself. Yet, seeing her unwavering determination, I smiled and replied, "All right. You must give it your all, considering how long I've been tutoring you." We bid farewell at the staircase. She headed to room 5, while I proceeded to room 13. Due to the tri-province examination, the school had deliberately shuffled the seating arrangements rather than following the usual ranking system. Upon entering, I sensed many eyes upon me, prompting a wry smile as I silently endured their scrutiny. Given my reputation and accomplishments, it was only natural that they would recognize me as seasoned test-takers. We all fell into a profound silence when the bell rang, the classroom filled only with the rustling of papers. A few students wrote with such fervor that the sound of their pencils striking the desks echoed softly. Barely an hour into the exam, I completed the paper. This was still a slow pace for me. Left with nothing but boredom, I gazed out the window, feeling the weight of solitude. Just as I was lost in my reverie, a sudden alarm blared in my mind, startling me nearly to my feet. Fortunately, I managed to restrain myself. The invigilator cast a glance in my direction, and I feigned nonchalance, gazing out the window, while in reality, I was diligently scanning my surroundings. The firewall, a rare phenomenon, emitted a persistent alarm. Detection of unidentified sources attempting to siphon data. A surge of exhilaration coursed through me as the stagnant waters of my life finally rippled with excitement. To an outsider, I appeared to be resting my head on my hand, seemingly dozing off. Yet, my consciousness had already delved into the intricate web of data, meticulously unraveling the threads of information. The adversary was cunning, evading me like an eel slipping into the sea, engaging in a game of hide and seek. However, a formidable dragon cannot overpower the local serpent, especially when I emerged as the principal system from a multitude of others. Although I had not been active for some time, my abilities remained formidable. Following the traces left behind, I simulated the data and swiftly traced its source to a college entrance examination mind-reading system. I took the initiative, transmitting my own problem-solving approach. After a brief examination, it accepted my input, and I laughed heartily, youthful and exuberant. With that thought process, the concealed virus within began to proliferate, taking shape and launching an assault on the original system. The pitiful little system was now ensnared, and I toyed with it like a cat with a mouse. It whined for mercy, pleading to be spared. I demanded clarity and honesty, yet it seemed rather dim-witted, repeating only apologies. Left with no choice, I forcibly confined it, directly accessing its database for a thorough search. The small system wept earnestly, and I understood the dreadful sensation of being invaded by an unfamiliar system. However, I had a duty to fulfill, to eradicate all unjust systems. My pace was swift, and it was not long before I confirmed its unjust nature. Through the mind-reading function, it had been pilfering the intellectual achievements of others to assist its host in attaining high scores. Such reprehensible conduct. The college entrance examination is akin to a multitude of candidates traversing a narrow bridge, where even a fraction of a point can create vast disparities. A mere 0.5 points could separate several individuals. This behavior only exacerbates the challenges faced by other examinees, fostering an atmosphere of inequity. Suddenly, a frantic, unfamiliar voice echoed in my mind. 205. 205. Are you still there? Is something wrong? Why aren't you speaking? Quick. Tell me how to solve a last question posed by Jiang Tinglan. How intriguing. I chuckled, resolved to engage with his host. Our systems have stringent confidentiality protocols, preventing 205 from disclosing the identity of its client. I also lacked the means to ascertain its host's identity unless I eliminated it. However, I am not a merciless entity. I advocate for resolving issues with a gentle and nurturing approach. Thus, I resolved to assist the individual in obtaining my answer, thereby unearthing this idler. Even He Xinger must achieve commendable results under my peculiar guidance. Who dares to be so carefree, risking it all? I left behind the key to 205, akin to the lifeblood of our systems, safeguarding our database. With it, 205 could not escape. Go, and relay the correct answer to the last question to your host. 205 timidly ran away, then returned to inform me. I didn't copy it all. I raised an eyebrow, finding it somewhat intriguing that they understood the difficulty of not being able to write everything down. I resumed monitoring the conversation between 205 and the host. 205. Provide me with the answer to the trigonometric function problem involving Jiang Tinglan. 205. Which option did she select for question 11? Quickly, give me the answer to question 14. I filtered through the requests, discovering that this host had some foundational knowledge, yet struggled with moderately challenging questions. However, their grasp was not particularly strong, as they still needed to consult 205 for a few relatively straightforward problems. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck me, and I knew what to do. I instructed 205 to inform the host that there were several questions where my selections differed from theirs. Soon, the host began to spiral into self-doubt. For the intimidation factor of an academic overachiever is formidable. It is akin to calculating 0,405,800 times, consistently arriving at 02. But when someone asserts, no, it must be 002, one instinctively reconsiders, especially when the claim comes from a highly accomplished scholar. Even on the simplest question, the first set theory problem, the host began to murmur in uncertainty. Is that correct? Does it mean we all have the same? Why did Jiang Tinglan choose?
Why?
It must be selecting both. Did I draw it incorrectly? That shouldn't be. If the radius of the cone's base is the square root of 2, and the side unfolds into a semicircle, how long is the slant height? Did I misremember the formula? Or is the diagram wrong? Which other option could it be, if not 2 times the square root of 2? The host was engulfed in profound cognitive dissonance, even beginning to inquire of 205, do you think my answer is correct, or is Jiang Tinglan's? 205 replied, I am merely a mind-reading system. I only convey answers,
Not generate them.
There ensued a lengthy silence from the host, and 205 returned, eagerly asking me, Boss, did I respond well? Ultimately, the hosts still failed to trust their own judgment. Burdened by immense anxiety and tension, they submitted the most apprehensive answer sheet. 205 exclaimed, all wrong. Completely incorrect. They changed 2 times the square root of 2 to 4. I applauded, encouraging further efforts. Since only one subject is tested in each time slot, after completing the mathematics exam, everyone went off to eat. I was waiting for Xing'er to find me when an unfamiliar female classmate timidly approached. Jiang, may I ask what you selected for the second multiple choice question? I was somewhat taken aback. Had she already succumbed to anxiety? I had thought she was in a good mental state. Nevertheless, for the sake of her upcoming exam, I could only reluctantly inform her. I'm sorry. I finished the paper quite early and don't recall what I selected. Just then, Xing appeared. What are you two discussing? The girl hastily repeated her question, and Xing promptly answered, even elaborating on the process. Of course, it is 2 times the square root of 2. The circumference of the base of the cone is equivalent to the arc length of the semicircle in its lateral development, while the length of the cone as slant height corresponds to the radius of that semicircle, which measures 22. Hence, the slant height of the cone is determined to be 22. I observed as the girl visibly exhaled in relief. That's wonderful. I calculated it correctly. Thank you. Wasn't she the host of 205? I felt a pang of disappointment. Xing, pulling me along, insisted we go for a meal. You're welcome. It is my privilege to assist you. Upon reaching the cafeteria, I contemplated summoning 205, but Xing excitedly chattered at me. Lon, thanks to your rigorous training, I actually managed to solve the first part of the penultimate question. It was truly a close call. I nearly ran out of time to write my answer, finishing just at the last second. I gazed at her with a mix of pity and amusement, to which Xing, perplexed, responded, What's wrong? Silly child, I said, ruffling her hair, curious if there was any substance within. Did you check your earlier answers? Just before Xing could scream, I swiftly covered her mouth to prevent us from attracting unwanted attention. I silently counted to 3, and in her moment of regret, she exclaimed, Oh my goodness. I didn't check. What should I do? Thus, on our way back to the dormitory from the cafeteria, Xing lamented about losing a sesame seed while discarding a watermelon. I could only comfort her. It's all right. Even if you lose points, it merely indicates carelessness, not a lack of understanding. You've made significant progress. Don't fret too much, all right? And remember, I am your dedicated tutor. Finally, she calmed down and focused on her next subject. I did not engage in any revision. Instead, I lay on my bed, reminiscing about the examination list posted at the front of the classroom. From my earlier observations, I sought a student of average performance, one who was typically unassuming, diligent in their studies, lacking in confidence, prone to anxiety, and slightly competitive. Li Xian, Jin Xian, Huang Xian Wu Zi. Upon further reflection, I discovered that among the 30 students in the examination room, over a dozen fit this description. I could only wait for the afternoon exam, hoping the elusive fox's tail would reveal itself. The bell for afternoon nap time soon rang, and we hastily made our way to the examination hall. Once again, it was a matter of distributing papers, picking up pens, and answering questions. I wrote swiftly as always, yet 205 was still slow to approach me. When I urged it with a key, it finally scampered over. Boss, I apologize. The host requested me to eavesdrop on others. I was taken aback. Was there someone in the examination hall more formidable than I? 205 explained. The host deemed your answers unreliable and decided to cast a wide net to gather the mode. I inquired about the events following the morning exam, but 205 admitted ignorance. I am merely a new system, with limited energy, mostly remaining in standby mode. While I was dormant, I only heard the host alternating between laughter and tears, sometimes claiming correctness and other times stating otherwise. I was somewhat alarmed. Had I driven someone to madness? This seemed unethical. 205 then asked if I had any further inquiries, as it needed to transmit the answers promptly. Seeing it was quite busy, I instructed it to attend to its tasks. Although 205 engages in unethical behavior, it does so for the sake of survival. Once I resolve the situation, I shall assign tasks based on its characteristics. At present, my search for candidates has reached an impasse. Without copying my answers, I find myself unable to pinpoint the solutions. Suddenly, I recalled a function I had not utilized in quite some time, the emotion detection device. Primarily designed to ascertain whether others are lying, it now proves to be quite fitting for my current needs. I summoned 205 once again. Which option should I select for the classical Chinese text segmentation question? 205 responded, commanding the ancient horse post to send forth the clarion call of reward and punishment. Daily thousands are bound. Thus the primary culprits are subdued, securing the southern barbarians and establishing a stone monument of merit. I glanced at it, and indeed, it was correct. If I inquire, you shall respond that the selections of N are equally divided. 205, perplexed yet compliant, went off to execute my request. Once 205 departed, I activated the detection function. At that moment, I could perceive the emotional fluctuations of everyone present. The invigilator's boredom index was exceedingly high, with a small line above his head reading, "When will this end?" I longed to eat. I scanned the examination hall, noting that nearly everyone's emotions were a tumultuous blend of anxiety and unease. Suddenly, one area exhibited rapid emotional fluctuations, marked by suspicion, entanglement, and indecision. I swiftly glanced to the right and was taken aback. It was the girl who had approached me for answers earlier that morning. But had she not claimed her calculations were correct? I too felt a stir of doubt. What was transpiring? Despite my curiosity, I resolved to remain still. Upon 205's return, I inquired tentatively, following the examination details outside, "Is your host named Su Xiaoxiao?" Silence enveloped the room like the serene night at Kongqiao. 205 tacitly acknowledged this fact. Thus, I spoke with gravitas. 205. Your host is indeed Su Xiaoxiao. You may now disclose your task to me. With the system's restrictions lifted, 205 finally elucidated everything. This is a world crafted around a high school entrance examination narrative. The protagonist, Su Xiaoxiao, is an utterly ordinary individual. Conventionally, a protagonist should not be someone so commonplace. Nevertheless, the author sought to pen a tale centered on an unremarkable character, Su Xiaoxiao, with her ordinary family, appearance, and academic performance, led a life as mundane as any ordinary personess. As the narrative unfolded, the author discovered that such a story lacked excitement, as many readers saw reflections of themselves in it. Countless individuals turned to novels for relaxation, seeking escape from the banality of their own lives, not wishing to confront a version of themselves that they perceive as ineffectual. Thus emerged 205, a mind-reading system for the college entrance examination. To render the system's existence plausible and to enable Su Xiaoxiao to alter her fate, the author transformed her backstory, crafting her into a pitiable child plagued by a wicked stepmother and a scheming stepsister. Thus, the resilient and burdened Su Xiaoxiao yearned for an opportunity to change her destiny. Much like Cinderella, she succeeded. The arrival of 205 elevated her academic performance. Had it not been for my interference, she would have likely been guided by 205 to a prestigious institution, perhaps even an elite university. Isn't this a quintessential trope? All those who have wronged, humiliated, or looked down upon me will ultimately be met with a resounding slap in the face due to the protagonist's remarkable transformation. After 205 finished speaking, I fell into silence. I was uncertain how to proceed. Should I detach 205 from Su Xiaoxiao, or should I reveal to her that everything she knows is a fade, that her life should not have unfolded in this manner? In the end, I merely gestured for 205 to return. It seems I have been human for too long. Hence the hesitation. When I was merely a straightforward system, my methods were much more direct and unrefined. With 15 minutes remaining before the exam concluded, I suddenly called 205 back. Go tell Su Xiaoxiao to remain steadfast in her choices, regardless of their nature. I murmured. 205 complied and left, after a while. I noticed the fleeting rigidity in the girl's figure, followed by her changing her answers. I couldn't discern whether my action was beneficial or detrimental. All I felt was a pang of sorrow, for it reminded me of the time I taught He, who was similarly apprehensive. She would sneak glances at my expression, attempting to gauge whether her answers were correct. Was it truly me that she feared? After the exam, He approached me once again. As I followed her outside, she nearly bumped into someone, but I was quick enough to catch her. He instinctively apologized, and when the girl sheepishly looked up, I realized it was Su Xiaoxiao. After parting ways, I once again began with "I have a friend" and presented a challenging question to He. After a moment of contemplation, she replied, "I've read about the college entrance examination system. It's merely designed for the reader's amusement. If I were the heroine, I would hope for a happy family," she mused. Imagine living with your parents for over a decade, only to wake up one day and find them gone. Opening the door to find a cruel stepmother and a cunning stepsister. What a stark contrast. But you could still gain admission to a prestigious university and embark on a glorious life, I emphasized. He waved her hand dismissively, but even if you eventually get to triumph over adversity, what does it matter? The purest love for oneself is no longer present. I gazed at her quietly, and He, feeling somewhat embarrassed, said, "I was just making a point. Where did you hear such a story? It seems quite intriguing." I smiled. "Why didn't you say it was me this time?" "Of course, I know it's not you. I'm quite the oracle." He chuckled. "A friend mentioned it," I replied, expressing doubts about the narrative within. He pondered for a moment and said, "It depends on whose perspective it is. For the readers, it's merely a story. For the protagonist, however, it's a life turned upside down." After the Tri-Provinces joint examination concluded, I sought out Su Xiaoxiao. From 205, I learned that she enjoys stargazing on the grand platform after evening study sessions. Thus, I refrained from returning to the dormitory with He, enduring her mild complaints. From a distance, I spotted the frail girl, seemingly light enough to be whisked away by the breeze. As I approached her, Su Xiaoxiao turned around and smiled. "Classmate Jiang Tinglan, you finally made it." Internally, I cursed 205 for its fickleness, yet she seemed to sense my thoughts. Do not blame 205. I had already perceived its oddity. It was I who urged it to reveal the truth. Standing beside me, Su Xiaoxiao suddenly pointed at a star and remarked, "Did you know? When I was a child, they told me that my mother ascended to the heavens and became a star. Yet, I have always felt that she did not transform into a star, but remained by my side." Finally, Su Xiaoxiao asked me, "Classmate Jiang, can you tell me where my mother truly went?" I sighed softly and rested my hand upon her head. The night breeze gently caressed, whisking away the girl's tears. Su Xiaoxiao expressed her desire to return home. I gazed at her intently, her eyes brimming with determination. "You will forfeit your chance for a comeback. Then let it be lost. You shall not reside in a grand villa. It was never mine to begin with. Your life will be fraught with uncertainties." Su Xiaoxiao chuckled softly. "That is precisely life." "Very well," I exhaled, uttering my final words. "You shall no longer remember 205. This time." Su Xiaoxiao fell silent for a considerable while before quietly responding, "All right." Utilizing the privileges of the main system, I rectified the narrative that belonged to Su Xiaoxiao. The girl's figure gradually faded into the night, prompting me to inquire of the weakened 205. "Are you truly content with this fate?" 205, unusually composed, replied, "I was always meant to exist for her." I retracted 205 into the system space, allowing it to recuperate. During the plot reset, 205 was also meant to vanish, however. Su Xiaoxiao had safeguarded it with her protagonist's privilege. Though Su Xiaoxiao would no longer remember 205, and they would never meet again, my database stirred with a long-forgotten pulse, leaving me rooted in place.
Lan.
Jiang Tinglan. It was He calling out to me, rushing towards me in astonishment. "Hey, why are you crying? Who has bullied you?" I gazed at the teardrop on my fingertip and slowly replied, "I merely witnessed a profoundly moving story." The results of the joint entrance examination were released, and once again, I secured the top position. To my surprise, He had squeezed into the top 20, showing remarkable progress. As I perused the rankings, I spotted a familiar name, Su Xiaoxiao, who ranked 49th. Yet I recalled her previous position at 150. Was it the influence of 205? Or was her life destined to unfold this way? Driven by curiosity, I delved into the original narrative of Su Xiaoxiao. In a commonplace yet warm family, an ordinary girl blossoms in happiness. Although she may not be exceptionally bright, she perseveres diligently, nurturing her own interests and friendships, leading a joyful life. With each step, she gains admission to a reputable university and ultimately leads a life filled with mundane yet meaningful experiences. Upon opening her eyes again, Su Xiaoxiao brushes past me, accompanied by a chattering group of friends. "Why don't you come over to my house after the college entrance examination? My mother is an excellent cook," she invites.
Sure.
"Don't forget to make me braised pork." I reply with a smile, lowering my gaze. He Xinger inquires about the source of my happiness. I feign mystery, elongating my tone. "It's because you performed splendidly in the exams. I was thinking that if you hadn't tea, I would have had to charge you." He Xinger pretends to be angry and attempts to hit me, but I laugh and scamper away. The days leading up to the college entrance examination felt like a fleeting dream, and before we knew it, they had arrived. During the final mock exam, He Xinger astonishingly surpassed Chen Jingchuan, securing the second position in our grade. That afternoon, many heard Chen Jingchuan's loud outcry. It was then that we learned the most fearsome grade director of the first year was, in fact, his mother. Following the conclusion of the exams, I assigned 205 to the realm of tragic love. When it inquired about its mission, I contemplated and responded, to maintain world peace and to encourage everyone to speak up. Under He Xinger's guidance, I too became well-read, harboring a particular disdain for couples who remain silent. 205, seemingly understanding, eagerly saluted me. I promised to accomplish the task. What I did not anticipate was the fervor with which 205 would act. Just as He Xinger and I arrived in Lhasa, it reported back to me about the progress of our mission. I found myself unable to contain my laughter, prompting He Xinger to ask what was amusing me. After a moment of reflection, I replied, "I have a friend." The end.